tonight for our 20th Voters Forum. I would really like to thank the hardworking Beaverton Committee for Community Involvement for hosting this educational, I hope, and informative forum. I'd also like to recognize a couple of our city councilors who are right back here, kind of in the middle. I don't know, right or left, depends on your viewpoint, I guess, but Councilor Mark Sansucci and Councilor Mark Fagan. Gentlemen, good evening. You know, voting is really a part of our civic responsibility. It's a cherished right and a responsibility, I think, in this country. I know I was able to register at 21. I've never missed voting in an election. And probably in Chicago I'm still voting, but that's a different story. So as mayor, part of my job is to honor these occasions. I also want to thank all of you for being here tonight, young and old, and taking the time to listen to the candidates and proponents and opponents of the measures and asking your questions. This is your night to help make decisions regarding these races and, again, the propositions that are on the ballot. This evening you will learn more about the City of Beaverton Measure 34-226 for authorizing bonds to rebuild City Hall as a public safety center, as well as Washington County Measure 34221 for a vehicle registration fee for road maintenance and operations. Yes, I'm hurrying. I know I only have 2 minutes for this, but you also have an opportunity to hear from candidates for the Senate District 17, as well as Representative Districts 27, 28, and 34. Last on our agenda for this evening, you'll have a chance to learn more about Measure 92 to require food manufacturers and retailers to label genetically engineered foods on the food packaging. So, it's my pleasure to turn this back to our extraordinary moderator, Eric Schmidt. He is very good and he's very tough. You will not get an extra 2 seconds from this man. So we have a full agenda, but Eric, as always, I know, because you've shut me up more than once, will keep us on track. So thank you very much. Seriously, let's thank Eric. He does this all because he just enjoys it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm probably the only person in Beaverton other than your wife who's ever been able to tell you not to speak. I'd like to welcome the members of the Mayor's Youth Advisory Board. They're sitting down here in the front board. Young people, thank you for being with us tonight. They will have an opportunity to ask the first question in each of our sessions this evening, and this is a shining example of our future going forward. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all in the audience who are here at the Beaverton Library for the Voters Forum for the 2014 general election. And thank you all who are watching on TVC TV. As Mayor Doyle mentioned, tonight's forum is co-sponsored by the Beaverton Committee for Community Involvement and the City of Beaverton. Beaverton's Committee for Community Involvement is composed of one representative from each of the city's neighborhood associations, or as they are fondly called, NACs, along with 8 at-large members who are appointed by the mayor and the city council. BCCI is an advisory committee to the Beaverton City Council. In addition, BCCI sponsors educational activities designed to promote public participation in Beaverton city government. And since its inception, BCCI has been active in public involvement policies, especially those involving land use. Our audience tonight will be able to submit questions to the candidates and measures using yellow question cards, which are located in their informational packets that they received coming into the Voters Forum tonight. Questions will be brought to me, and candidates and measure presenters will have an opportunity to respond to as many of those questions as we can ask tonight. And due to time constraints, we are limited on how many questions we can ask, so we provided the folks at home an opportunity to ask some questions as well. They submitted them online, and I have several of them. We're going to take advantage of that in addition to the questions that we receive here tonight. If you need to contact a candidate or someone with a ballot measures here tonight, please, their information is available here, or you can contact the city neighborhood office at City Hall, and we will provide that information. The order of the candidates' opening and closing statements is based on a drawing that was done by the members of the BCCI, and tonight we have 2 timekeepers. And these ladies know what they're doing. They've been doing it for at least 5 or 10 minutes. Sharon Dunham and Terry Lawler, thank you ladies for coming down and doing this again tonight. They are equipped with stopwatches and iPhones and signs, and they're going to let the candidates and the proponents and opponents know just exactly how much time they have left to answer their questions or for their opening and closing statements. And of course, as Mayor Doyle said, if somebody goes over time, I get the last word. Let's get started. Tonight, we have an informational overview from Beaverton Police Chief Jeff Spaulding and Beaverton Police Captain Jeff Munger on Measure 34-226. That authorizes bonds to rebuild the old Beaverton City Hall as a public safety center. Mayor Doyle will speak for the passage of this measure. We had no one in opposition to this, so it will be kind of one-sided, but that's okay tonight. Chief Jeff Spaulding served with the Fullerton, California Police Department from 1977 to 2008 in various levels and divisions within that department. He retired from the Fullerton Police Department in 2008 and joined the Beaverton Police Department in February 2009 as Chief of Police. He holds a master's degree in emergency management from Cal State Long Beach and a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Cal State Fullerton. In addition, he attended the FBI Southwest Command College in April of 2006 and the FBI National Academy in March of 2007. Captain Jim Munger has served with the Beaverton Police Department since 1985. I have socks that are as old as he's been in the police department. For those of you who can do the math, that's 29 years with the city of Beaverton. Since 2013, he has been overseeing the department's Investigations and Community Services Division, and he is the project manager for the Public Safety Center. And gentlemen, we've allotted 7 minutes to the two of you for your informational presentation on Measure 34-226. You can divide the time up as you wish, and I'm sure you already have. Take it away.
All right, well, thank you, Mr. Moderator. Again, Jeff Spaulding, Beaverton Police Chief. Thank you all for being here tonight. We really appreciate the public coming out to learn a little bit more about the Beaverton Police Department Public Safety Center bond measure. Excuse me. So we have about 7 minutes. I'm going to take about a minute, and then I'm going to turn it over to Captain Munger, who's going to go through the rest of the slide presentation. So real briefly, and just some real quick fast facts, most people may not know that Beaverton was actually incorporated in 1893. And the other little interesting fact, in that 120 years, the city has never built a dedicated public safety facility. Currently, the population hovers right around 93,000. When the Beaverton Police Department, the City Hall, moved into the building, which is currently located on Griffith, the population hovered around 30,000. Right now, we have about 178 employees that work just for the police department, doesn't include the court. Back then, in 1986, we had about 63 employees, so we've grown about threefold. As many of you know and have read in the newspapers, that the vast majority of the City Hall component has moved out of the current Griffith building into the new Beaverton building. The remaining folk are the police department and the courts. That has given us a great opportunity now to renovate that existing facility, and Captain Munger is going to talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. Next slide. So one of the things, the other thing I just want to touch on real quick is how important the outreach component is of this project. We learned early on that when we first started the mayor first appointed the Public Safety Center Advisory Committee to help us determine if this is the best project for us and the best way to do it that we can sell to our citizens. And so we realized how important the outreach was. And over the past several weeks, months, and actually years, to be honest with you, we've been doing this for almost 5 years now. We've been out over 125 events, over 4,400 direct contacts with citizens. And I'm not going to read all the statistics, but I can tell you we've had tremendous outreach efforts in terms of making sure that the public is well informed about our upcoming bond measure. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Captain Munger.
Thank you, Chief. Throughout the slide, you're going to see quite a bit where we have consolidate, prepare, renew, and they all interlink with each other, so it's going to be really challenging to try to differentiate between all of those elements. A public safety center for the Beaverton community means emergency management, our emergency operations center, our municipal court, our police department, also any interagency law enforcement teams that are housed throughout the county. We don't house any because we just simply don't have any room in our current facility. Public Safety Center would also have community rooms, room for our city attorneys, for our volunteers, both on the police and also on the emergency operations side. It would also be a facility that would last us for at least 30 years. For the emergency management across from the library is our Emergency Operations Center. It is actually a community center that the Emergency Operations Center has taken over. There is no room currently at police facilities for this. And this is one that in a natural disaster, the building itself does not have the seismic capabilities that it needs to stand, and you would lose your emergency operations center. We want to consolidate that into the public safety center. For the police department, our property and evidence facility and our training facility are currently housed off-site. We currently have more space leased off-site than we have at the Griffith Building. We want to consolidate those locations back into the public safety center. This is a much more efficient and a much more safe way to run the police department. Also, our mountain bike team, our traffic safety team are off-site, and also throughout the city we have various storage locations that we squirreled things away that we want to bring back into the one location. The municipal court itself does not have enough room. They have one courtroom. They use the old council chambers as a second courtroom. And we talk about the front counter service. If you've ever gone to the municipal court, you'll notice that you walk through the main area, the same area that we walk prisoners that are coming into court because we do not have the ability to separate them. There's one bathroom across from the courtroom, and this is the same bathroom that is shared by employees, by jurors, by those that are testifying, and also defendants. It's not a very safe situation for the people that are working there. The building itself, as the chief had mentioned, was built in 1984. The city moved into it in 1986. A space needs study was conducted, and it determined that we did not have enough square footage. A police department, for the population that Beaverton has with the employees we have, should have at least 105,000 square feet. And then on top of that, we want to add the community centers. We need room for our interagency teams, and we also need room for emergency management. On top of that, this building needs to last us for at least 30 years, and that's the reason why the building itself needs to be a little bit larger. As far as how much this would cost, we looked at several different options, and we realized that renewing this particular site using the existing building as much as we could was a dramatic reduction from the $60 or the $40 million that we were originally looking at. So we want to renew this site. As far as how it would be paid for, right now our property owners are paying for the library at about $49 per year. When it is just the public safety center, it would be about $60 per year. In between the two, when the library and the public safety center would be being paid off at the same time, it would be about $92 per year for the average home in Beaverton. And this graph shows how it would look as far as the first 4 years with the library and the public safety center, and then the final 16 years of being just the public safety center.
1 minute. You got 1 minute?
And this is for you? Yes. Next slide.
So what were we just going to...
Wrap up.
Okay, so that pretty much concludes our presentation. We wanted to allow a little bit extra time in case there's some extra questions. I know we have some time. If we can use that time for the questions, or does that...
I'll have to consult with my lawyer, but yeah, I think we can do that. We would like an opening statement, however, from Mayor Doyle,
Right.
if we could.
Thank you. As an elected official, I can advocate for the bond measure. Staff, like the chief and Captain Monger, have to stick to the project facts. They can't ask for your support, but I sure can. And I'm asking you tonight, it's really simple. Please vote yes for the Public Safety Center. For more than 30 years, we've known the old City Hall wasn't up to the job. I remember that was a transitional housing temporary, and here we are 30 years later. Anyone who takes a tour walking through the building, walking through the police department, can see it for themselves. The place isn't designed for police and court functions. We've had independent reports tell us we're very lucky we've not had more serious security incidents at the building and in the courts. Eventually, our luck will run out, and we have a responsibility to people serving jury duty or in the building for routine business to make sure they're safe. The building is also not up to modern seismic standards. We need to know our police and emergency functions will be operational when we need them the most. The men and women of our police and court have created so many workarounds to the current setup you wouldn't believe it. Boots residing in showers, juveniles held in a converted evidence storage space, court staff standing in bathrooms to ensure witnesses and victims aren't interacting with a defendant in a jury trial, crime victims sharing their personal stories in the front of the lobby of the building without any privacy except for a real thin piece of plexiglass or a sense of comfort. Enough is enough. We can do better, and we must do better. This plan has been put together by a top-notch group of volunteers led by community and business leaders. They delivered a plan that allows us to remodel our old City Hall. It saves time and money. Doing nothing is no longer an option. Please join me in voting yes for public safety and supporting this bond measure. Men and women protect us, so please, let's protect them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, Chief, Captain. The first question for you tonight, and we'll give you that extra minute, no problem, comes from a Mayor's Youth Advisory Board member, Nadini Nadu. You there? Come on down.
Good evening. My name is Nandini Naidu. I attend Valley Catholic High School, and I'm in 9th grade. My question is, how is having the Public Safety Center important to our community?
Well, it's important that for first responders that we have a public safety center that we can truly operate out of and not an old office building. We've outgrown the building. It doesn't have the seismic needs that we have in an earthquake situation. We would probably lose that facility. And we also need to provide a safe environment for the employees and also for the community members that are visiting us at that building.
And I would like to add that one of my key goals from day one was to consolidate all of our operations back under one roof. I get the question frequently, you know, now that the City Hall component's moved out, do you have enough room? Well, in actuality, we don't, because as the captain mentioned earlier, we actually lease more space off-site than we have currently on-site. So once this new facility is constructed in this conceptual drawing you see up here, then we will now be able to bring all of our operations back under one roof. It increases communications, it makes us more efficient, and we're going to be able to continue to provide the great level of service that we're known for.
Thank you.
Young lady. Appreciate it. Are there any questions from the audience? The yellow cards? We'll take them. Otherwise, we'll go to the questions that we got online. Chief, I guess this one is for you. From a logistics standpoint, is this the best location for a public safety center? Are there other places in Beaverton that would be more centrally usable?
Well, that's a great question, and actually, this is one of the tasks of our Public Safety Center Advisory Committee. They actually looked at 20 different locations in the term of, while the committee was involved in looking at the different sites. And it was important that we identify a site that was convenient, was also appropriate in terms of our being able to respond to calls for service, especially emergency calls for service. But at the end of the day, when we had the opportunity, when the City Hall component moved out, we realized that this actually is a great location. Most everybody knows where we're located, so we don't have to re-educate the public in terms of a move. It's centrally located, it's close to the freeway, where the police and courts still get to continue to work together, which was very critical. And so in terms of the cost, as Captain Munger mentioned too, it was a significantly less expensive option than some of the other options we explored when we were looking at buying a piece of dirt and building something from scratch.
Mayor?
I totally, ditto. No, it doesn't. I know, there's a flippant answer. Yes, Chief, you're okay. The committee really did look at a lot of different places, and this truly makes sense. We still will have some neighborhood presence like we currently have, so nothing is going to change from that respect. We have officers in different little spots temporarily that they can stop so they don't have to come back and forth. So really business will go on as usual. It's just going to be much more efficient. Having that location is right by 217 and all our major roads, and it's really important that we keep it that way.
And you're really going to send cars down 217 in rush hour, right?
We're going to try.
Yeah, okay. Just asked. What are the plans for where the police and the court will be during the remodel?
We haven't determined what specific locations that we're going to go into. It's going to be challenging to find one location that has all the square footage that we need. We've already contacted the Washington County Sheriff's Office, and they've agreed that we can use their booking facility on Murray Boulevard so that we'll have a place to book prisoners at that location. We know that we do have some places within the city that the city already has control or owns that we will try to put our staff into those locations. We know that we're going to be fragmented for a few years during the construction period, but as the mayor had commented on, it's going to be seamless to the community members. Hopefully, people will not be aware that we've even moved out of the City Hall. We looked at different options. One was to stay in the City Hall and move around during construction, and the other option would be to move off-site and allow the construction crew to have the entire site so they could do the work that they need to do. We found out that staying on-site would be more challenging for the construction crew because they would have to work around us, and it could cause disruptions for us. So for the short term, we do not know exactly where we're going to go. There are plenty of opportunities, and for the community, it will be a seamless transition.
And I'm sorry.
Go
Mayor.
ahead.
Just one thing the mayor and I have been talking about, and we're committed to having some sort of a presence on that current site so that there's no confusion for the public. We want to be able to triage the citizens that come here looking for the court, looking for the police department, looking for the old city hall, and hopefully take care of some of the business there so we don't have to disrupt the community any more than we already will during this 18-month period.
And by actually taking most of the services away from the site, we're going to save money and we're going to save time. It'll get done within 2 years.
So that would have been my next question. How long is this going to take?
A couple years.
Couple years? Okay. Question from our audience. Will you still need to lease off-site if the Public Safety Center is approved?
Jim?
I would assume that that means if it's built as well.
Correct. If it is built, no, we will not. We've expected that this building will not only meet our current needs to consolidate our property and evidence and training and all of the other things that we have off-site, so everything will fit at this one centralized location, and we expect that this one centralized location will fit our needs for at least the next 30 years.
Will it result in operational savings?
Yes, it will. As an example, the the property and evidence facility, the money that we spend there in a 20-year lease will cost us about $3.5 million. That's just 10% of the bond measure that we're asking for. So yes, it will be savings as far as the off-site leases.
Right. You won't have the travel and that overhead to get to and from. And I think it's, Chief and I have talked about, I think we're going to get more positives than we even know at this point.
Right, absolutely.
And so it's exciting.
And there'll be additional savings and increased efficiencies, too.
Would this lead to an increase in the number of police officers?
Well, we, as a city, a long time ago with Pennies for the Police, have made a commitment to have a specific ratio of 1.5 officers per 1,000, and we're keeping right there, and we're going to keep right there.
I still have a few of those signs in my garage, if you'd like them back. Just thought I'd throw that out. All right, we're at the point
That's
now
where they
where
went to. Okay.
we'll have a closing statement. Mayor Doyle?
Well, just if I can repeat, and the councilors are certainly right there nodding, this is something serious we need to do. We have to get into the century of police work. We can't have officers coming in trying to recharge their phones and all the other apparatus that they have by taking somebody else's out of the... You got to go take a tour. See the building. You know what I'm talking about. It's incredible. The editor from the Oregonian came out just before Christmas last year. He got halfway through and he says, "This is crazy. You have to do this." And you might know that they're usually not that quick to come to an agreement with government on doing things. So I really hope you talk with more of the officers, talk with your neighbors. This is going to be something that we need to do for the future. It's something far more important than who gets elected. This is something that impacts all of us in a real serious way. And when you call for help, when the earthquake hits, we got to be there. The councilors are laughing about that electric crack, including myself. But seriously, we need your support and we really appreciate it. I think we made a great case and we're going to come in under budget.
Thank you, Mayor Doyle. Chief Spaulding, Captain Monger, we appreciate you being with us tonight.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, late. You can applaud if you want. You don't have to. It's fine. Even for cops, it takes courage to stand up in front of you guys. All right, we're going to talk about Measure 34-221 right now. Measure 34-221 is a proposal from Washington County for a vehicle registration fee for road maintenance and operations. Tonight we have Washington County Board Chairman Andy Dyke here as a proponent of 34-221, and Jody Weiser from Tax Fairness Oregon is here in opposition to that measure. Chair Dyke was raised on a farm outside of Hillsboro, Oregon, and attended Portland Community College. In 1983, he founded a manufacturing business, Dyke Machine Incorporated, which produces metal and plastic components that are marketed throughout the nation. Chair Dyke has many personal and public roles as the chair of the Washington County Board of Commissioners. He has served on the boards of Community Action, Centro Cultural of Washington County, Council of Forest Trust Lands, the Hillsborough Chamber of Commerce, and many, many others. Chair Dyke was sworn into office as the Washington County Board Chair in January of 2011. He was elected as a Washington County Commissioner in 1994 and served 16 years as the District 4 representative. As the Board Chair, Andy Dyke represents all of Washington County. Jody Weiser is a Bethany resident, and she founded the all-volunteer group Tax Fairness Oregon in 2003. She continues to serve as chairwoman of the nonprofit's board of directors. And thank you both for being with us tonight. We really appreciate it. So let's get started, I guess by a flip of the coin. Jody Weiser has the opening statement. 2 minutes, please.
Thank you. And thank you all for coming tonight and to become better informed voters. We agree that road maintenance is a problem. What we don't agree with is that this is the right solution. So why do we think Washington County voters should vote no on this measure 34221? Well, first, because this isn't the only way the problem is being solved. The federal government's talking about it, the state government's talking about it, and local communities are talking about it. Well, obviously, we're not expecting that Congress is going to take action anytime soon. But as Mr. Dyke and other people on the commission know, the Washington County Commission, Washington County, the several cities of the county, the Association of Oregon Cities, the council, or I can't remember the name of the county organization for the state, and everybody from bicycle people to truckers are on this group called the Transportation Forum, and they are asking the state to address the problem of our crumbling infrastructure. We think that's where the problem should be solved, not at the local level. And that if it's solved at the state level and they increase our vehicle registration fee and our gas taxes there, and we've already voted to increase the fees here, we will in fact be collecting more money to repair our roads than our roads need. And that's not what we should do, particularly when there are many people who will find $30 a year hard to take when it's added to another 20 from the state and another 5 or 10 cents a gallon in gas taxes. And so it's double kill, and we are opposed to doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Weiser. Commissioner Dyke. 2 minutes.
Thank you. 34-221 is a referral by the Board of Commissioners of the $30 a year annual vehicle registration fee. The purpose of the fee is to address a growing backlog of deferred maintenance that we have on our roadway system. Now, Washington County keeps pretty good roads, and you generally don't see the problem with the roads until the roads are too far gone to repair. Two things have caused the need for the vehicle registration fee. Those who are in business understand its inputs and outputs. The first would be an increase in maintenance costs due to the rise in asphalt costs. We all know asphalt is made of oil, and we know what that price has done, as well as labor costs going up. The other input, the input on the revenue side is the gas tax. And as people have driven more fuel-efficient vehicles, hybrids and electrics, we have seen the revenue decrease. Those two things put us in a situation where we don't have the revenue to continue to maintain the roads to the degree that we need to. Now, why is this important today? We have waited many years for the state to deal with the problem, and they have from time to time. But right now, we have a backlog, and if we don't maintain our roads today, it could cost between 5 and 10 times more to rebuild the roads later. Washington County is very proactive. The voters have placed their trust in us to make sure that we have the resources to maintain our roads, and we've done a pretty good job with that. We only have to look to a city to the east of us, Portland, to know what happens if we put this off too long. I won't say any more on that score because it's very obvious and it's in the news every day. So we ask for the support, for your support of 32-221 so that we can maintain the roads now rather than pay more later.
Would that city be Estacada? Just asking. Our first question comes from a member of the Mayor's Youth Advisory Board, Jessica Schau. Come on down. And it will go to Chair Dyke and then to Jody.
Good evening. My name is Jessica Schau, and I'm a 9th grader at Southridge High School. My question is, what objection is this going to receive from citizens? How are you going to overcome that?
The objection, as Ms. Weiser pointed out, is that it is $30 at a time when we're being taxed in all areas of our needs. The way we have to overcome that is to explain to people that we have a choice to make. Like any business, we have an investment and we need to maintain that investment. Roads are just like a new house. When you buy a new house, you don't let the roof start to leak or it destroys the whole house. We need to help the voters to understand they have an investment in the roads, and if they maintain that investment, it'll serve them well in the future.
Ms. Weiser?
Well, I would agree with the people who have a concern. The county has had a lot of money that they could have used to maintain roads that they haven't used. For instance, 6 years ago, we voted for a new transportation development tax, and only 20 days ago did they finally fully implement that tax. If they'd implemented it a long time ago, when we voted for it, then we would have actually had more money that could be used to build and maintain roads.
Thank you. Next question will go to you, Ms. Weiser, and it comes from online. Do you know how much revenue Washington County would receive if the legislature were to fully enact a transportation package?
If they enacted the transportation package they're considering, it would probably bring $36 million to Washington County, city, and the county. Their share of that would be that. We're about almost 12% of the state. We would get almost 12% of the money.
Chair Dyke?
I don't know, and the legislature has talked about transportation for many years, and it could be any number, large or small. I'm not willing to put my faith in something that is not definite coming down the pike. But I would like to address the TDT. As Ms. Weiser pointed out, the TDT is for building new roads. It does nothing for our maintenance. So that's not a viable argument.
Next question is for you, Chair Dyke. Why should Washington County residents pay for road maintenance on roads used by everyone?
Washington County has a road network, and it is used by everybody, and we should look at the vehicle registration fee as a base user charge that we all pay. Just like you would on your phone bill, you pay a base charge for the system, and then you pay a user charge as well. This is much the same way. Everybody, whether you have an electric vehicle or a gas guzzler, you're paying the same base charge under this system. And then your gas tax on top of that would help for the additional usage and wear and tear on the roads.
Ms. Weiser?
And we think this is really a statewide problem, not just a Washington County problem. And so, you know, I didn't pay anything except on my gas taxes and my license fees to support the roads in Eastern Oregon, but I went there twice this year. And I go to Washington State, I don't pay taxes there. It's just our responsibility to support the whole transportation infrastructure.
Next question is for you, Ms. Weiser, and it comes from our audience. Why not tax the hybrid or all-electric vehicles that have reduced gas tax revenues instead of just the general public?
I think everybody agrees that eventually that's where we'll be. And actually, our state is leading the nation in research in that area. There'll be a test started in July of next year that 5,000 people will get to participate in. But we have a problem that needs to be addressed now, and we probably won't get to that user-based fee for another 5 or 6 years. And so we do need to get there. We should be using paying for our roads the way we pay for electricity, how much we use them. And that used to kind of work because cars were all more the same. It's not working very well now.
Chair Dyke.
We don't tax just electric vehicles because that's not an option. It's not a tool given to us by the state. We're looking at only those tools which the state allows us by law to do. One thing that is very important with this measure is that if the state does something with the vehicle registration fee, that money is distributed throughout the state and we receive a portion of it back. If it's taxed here locally, 100% of it stays right here on your local roads. That's a big issue.
Next question is for you, Chair Dyke. Is there anything happening with a studded tire fee?
At this point, there is nothing happening, at least not at the county level. We've had many discussions with our state partners over the wear and tear that studs put on the road system. Whether they address that in a future statewide package, I don't know, but that discussion is happening.
Ms. Weiser?
There's supposed to be a report out between now and Christmas about studded tires, and that's one of the possible places of additional revenue to repair roads.
That would be an effective time to have that discussion, wouldn't it? We talk about the gaps in funding for road maintenance. Do you see, Ms. Weiser, an effective narrowing of that gap at the state and federal level rather than relying at all on local revenues?
I think that it's really likely that the state will act this year. They raised our fees, the vehicle fees, in 2010. They raised the gas tax in 2011. People didn't really even notice it, and they're aware of that, and they know the need is there. I think they're very likely to raise the tax. And part of my concern is we don't need gold-plated roads when we have schools that would crumble in an earthquake. We have other things we have to take care of besides bridges and roads. And the other thing is that, you know, the county just got $38 million in gain share revenue and $20 million in SIP fees from Intel and Genentech this year. Some of that money could be devoted to the gap that we have in road maintenance, and we'd like to see more of that money devoted to that.
Chair Dyke?
I can't address that in 2 minutes because several charges were made here that are incorrect, but there just isn't enough time. I'll hit those that I can. Gain share, for example. The gain share revenue that came in, first of all, we don't use property tax dollars for roadways by state law, except for those that are grandfathered in. Gain share is not technically a property tax, but it is revenue in lieu of property tax. So the wisest thing to use it for are one-time expenditures, because we never know when it's going to end, and to use it on things that we really need just as much in the county. For example, an updated IT system or some seismic upgrades to the building. We've used some of it on a smart signalization, some of it on libraries, for example. Those are things that would not happen if we diverted that money to the roadway system, and it's not a wise use of funds. Roads that are generated on the roadway system, gas tax and vehicle registration fee, are the appropriate source for roadways, and we need to stick to that.
Thank you. This question is for you, Chair Dyke. Is there an exemption for someone who can't afford to pay the fee?
Currently, there is not, because our ordinance or our measure is modeled after what the state law allows us to do. So it creates the very specific exemptions that are in the system, exemptions of farm vehicles, of antique vehicles, and the like. That's all spelled out in state statute. We don't have a process for exempting individuals of low income or other means.
I guess the question to you, Ms. Weiser, is should there be an exemption?
I don't think that it would be easy to do. I think that the way to go around that would be to find somebody who wanted to subsidize those people's need.
Finally to you, do you have any idea of how much it would cost going into the future to repair the roads in Washington County currently? Ms. Weiser, I'm sorry.
Well, I know what I read in the voters pamphlet, and it said there's a $10.5 million backlog, and it's expected to double over the next 10 years. So that would be $21 million. I haven't seen anything that gave anything else. And if this measure passes, it looks like the county's share would be $77 million.
I'm not sure of the numbers. I know the backlog is $10 million, and that's per year. So if you think about the backlog in a per year basis, we continue to get further and further behind. If we don't address it today, we will find ourselves at a point of no return where we need a much higher amount of revenue to rebuild those roads. That's really a key to this campaign, and it's something that we all need to think about. What's important to us here? I've been a commissioner long enough to remember in the late 90s when the road revenues, we were in the same boat that we are now with declining revenues, and we were reverting roads back to gravel. It was not a pleasant place for me to be as a commissioner, and I don't look forward to those days again. You won't immediately see that in your neighborhoods because we start with the lowest priority roads first, which are usually those in the rural area. But eventually it works its way into town. And the best thing is to maintain now rather than to get into that situation.
And we are at the point now for closing statements. And by lot, Chair Dyke, you have the first closing statement. 2 minutes, please.
Okay, this is really a business decision, and it's not my decision to make, it's your decision. This is your investment. All I can do as your elected official is lay out the case for what we believe the needs are and why we are going the route that we are going, why we are suggesting the route we're suggesting. This is supported by the entire Board of Commissioners from both parties, all the way across the political spectrum. It's supported by all of the mayors in Washington County. Not just because we want more money, but because we know that you have an investment in a roadway system, and we think it's very important that you maintain that. Washington County has always been a leader. We've always had great economic development because we've been proactive and been able to make some hard choices with the information we have. My job is to present that information for you tonight, and I hope you make the choice to maintain what you have.
Thank you. Ms. Weiser.
And we believe that voters should vote no because the county commission never fully implemented until 20 days ago, the last thing we voted on for roads for them. And so this isn't the way to go. While they weren't implementing a tax, the legislature was implementing a tax for roads throughout the state. And we think that we should be part of the whole state, not just our own county, and be concerned about that. In addition, as Chair Dyke pointed out, they used some of that gain share money for roads, and they could use more of it for roads. If it's such a need, why hasn't it been addressed already with funds that were available? The plan that the state has would bring another $36 million to Washington County and her roads. The last increase gave the county and the cities $15 million a year for the last few years and helped pay for that $43 million exchange at Brookwood and Helvetia Road and other improvements in the area. Clearly, we are getting a good deal when we let the state act on transportation needs, and we shouldn't get out in front of them and put the roads in the situation where they're more important than the other values that we hold high as a community.
I want to thank you both for your closing statements, but this wouldn't be a voters forum in Beaverton without the moderator screwing up at least once. So what we're going to do now is we're going to break format a little bit, and we're going to have each of you ask the other a question. And I think you were warned ahead of time of this. And Ms. Weiser, if you had 30 seconds, what would you ask Chair Dyke about this particular measure?
I would ask why the voters pamphlet doesn't say that the backlog is $10.5 million a year, because it doesn't say that. It actually has about 3 paragraphs, and then it repeats about 3 paragraphs, and has very little substance to support the need.
And you have a minute, Chair Dyke.
Well, I didn't write the voters pamphlet statement. I did approve it. I would imagine the reason is because we try to be just as factual as we can in putting the information out there. So if we put a number out that it was 10.5 exactly, somebody would say, well, wait a minute, but it's 10.6 or it's 10.4. It's best just not to put the number in there. We try to just put the information out that there is a backlog and let the public make their decision based on that.
And now you have a chance to ask a question.
You've talked a lot about the TDT, for example, which actually shows how prudent the county is that we don't enact a tax until we absolutely need it. But you've not made the distinction between capital improvements and maintenance. And you've implied much that the state would give the county quite a bit of money back, but you haven't talked about how much of that would be maintenance dollars as opposed to new projects and capital. How much would it be?
So the proposal that's coming from the forum that I've seen, and your staff may have seen more than I've seen, says that they would raise all the fees, they would index them for inflation, and they would raise the gas tax 5%, 5 cents a gallon, that would be for maintenance, and possibly another 5 cents a gallon that would be for enhancements, or for the kind of thing that the TDT takes care of. And I do understand the distinction between the two. But for instance, when you make an improvement like where you take a road that's a 2-lane road and you make it into a 3 or a 5-lane road, that's a big road project not a maintenance project. But when you do that, you take wear and tear off of all sorts of other roads that have had way more heavy traffic than they were designed or built for. And so the two really are quite intermixed.
And with that, I'm going to say thank you very much, and thank you for your patience, as usual. You're both veterans of this, and I appreciate it. Yeah, that's why I get the big bucks, right? Thank you very much. Okay, up next we have the candidates for State Representative District number 27. Candidate Robert Martin is running against the incumbent, Representative Tobias Reed. Mr. Martin could not attend this evening, but we're going to honor our invitation that we extended to the other candidate in the race. Representative Reed will have an opportunity to give us an opening statement, answer questions from the audience, and give us his closing statement. So I hope you're ready for this. All right. I'll even let you ask yourself a question. How's that? Tobias Reed has served as a state representative for District 27 since first elected in 2006. He has also been elected and re-elected by his colleagues as the Democratic whip, and he now serves as the majority whip of the Oregon House of Representatives. Representative Reed serves as the chair on the House Committee on Transportation and Economic Development, as a member of the Committee on Revenue, Committee on Tax Credits, the Joint Committee on Ways and Means, and on the Ways and Means Subcommittee on Transportation and Economic Development. He is also an ex officio member of the Oregon Innovation Council, the Oregon Business Development Commission, and the Oregon Growth Board. And before serving as a state representative, Mr. Reed served as an aide to former Representative Brian Johnston and served in Washington, D.C. as an aide to U.S. Treasury Secretary Lawrence H. Summers during the Clinton administration. In Oregon, Tobias Reed has worked as a development officer for Willamette University and as a product developer of kids' footwear for Nike. He earned his bachelor's degree in politics and economics from Willamette University and a master's degree in business administration from the University of Washington. And we won't hold that against him. He lives in Garden Home with his wife, Heidi Eggert, and their 2 young children. Representative Reed, thank you for being with us tonight. Your opening statement, please.
Thank you very much, and thanks everybody for being here. I feel like that was a really long introduction, but I appreciate the chance to be with you. Being in the legislature for me is a lot like the great experiences I had in college and graduate school, and committees are a lot like classes. So all of us have to declare a legislative major, the area in which we want to specialize, and for me that's been economic growth. I think it's clear that in the long run, the things that we can impact at the state level that make a difference for economic growth are in education, innovation, and infrastructure. Those are the areas that I try to work on in the legislature, but I'm particularly interested tonight in the conversation we can have in the short time we have together. So I appreciate you being here and would ask for your vote.
Thank you. I would like to point out that we asked Mr. Martin for a biography. He did not respond to our requests for a biography that we could read here tonight, nor has he put any statements into the voters' pamphlets, so we're a little out of luck in finding out about his background as well. So now we get to go to the questions part of it, and I think since you're the chair of the Committee on Transportation and Economic Development, I'd like to ask you for your opinion on Measure 34-221.
I'll be voting for it, and I think it's very much a matter of arithmetic. The chair said it well. It's an asset that the transportation system is an asset that we need to maintain. It has a huge impact on the economy throughout the county and throughout the state. And I am reminded of the famous commercial many of us may remember from the Fram oil filters. It's a question of paying now or paying later. And at a time when interest rates are low, when unemployment is too high, and when we really are coasting on the fumes of investments that our parents and grandparents made, I think it's a good time to be working on infrastructure.
Thank you. Now we have a question from our Mayor's Youth Advisory Board member. He is Aneth Argurwal. Come on down.
Good evening. My name is Ananth Agarwal. I'm a junior at Westview High School. In support of Measure 86, assuring secondary education for Oregon students, what do the voter and taxpayer have to expect from this possibly expensive endeavor? Increased taxes?
Not necessarily. The Measure 86 is the Oregon Opportunity Initiative. I was proud to carry Senate Joint Resolution 1 that referred it to the ballot. And what it does is create a constitutionally locked fund for student financial aid. We do a horrible job in Oregon about funding student aid, and even when we muster the will to fund student aid, there is no guarantee for you and your classmates about what to expect in future years. If you're lucky enough to be one of the 20% of people who get an Oregon Opportunity Grant, there's no guarantee that you'll have it next time. So if the measure passes, we create a constitutional fund that can only be used for student aid assistance, and we offer an opportunity, a tool to the legislature. The legislature might make direct appropriations, they might use bonding, they might use a number of other sources to capitalize that fund. What you're doing if you're voting for the measure is allowing the legislature to make a smart investment in human capital that's going to pay dividends for many, many years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Another question from our audience tonight. What came from the discussion about the potential use of an income tax to stabilize revenues?
Well, an income tax is basically what we rely on for the vast majority of our revenue now. I'll take the question a little bit in a different direction, which is to say that I think the need for a rainy day fund and a robust source for a rainy day fund is one of the things that we most desperately need in Oregon. The income tax follows the rest of the economic cycle, and when the economy is down, so is our revenue. Unfortunately, that's sort of countercyclical to the need. When the economy is down and our revenue is down is when we see the greatest need. So I think the income tax can be improved, but when we put resources into a rainy day fund to balance against those ups and downs.
Another question from our audience. What is your position on the proposed carbon tax? Are you concerned about the potential costs to the poor and elderly?
I am concerned about it, but I think, as with anything, the question is what a specific proposal looks like. There's two reasons to have a tax, obviously. One is to raise revenue for things that we want to pay for, that we want to invest in, and the other is to motivate or discourage behaviors. We had a fascinating discussion in the Revenue Committee last session about the experience that British Columbia had with their carbon tax. They've implemented a carbon tax that increases bit by bit, year over year, at the same time that they decrease their other taxes, so that the total tax burden is pretty stable, and at the same time they've seen their carbon impact go down while their every measure of economic progress has exceeded the rest of Canada and all the individual provinces. So I think that suggests that it's worth considering and worth figuring out how that might or might not work in Oregon.
I don't know if you know this or not, but traffic congestion is a big problem here in Beaverton. What can Salem do to help us fix our problem?
Well, there's a number of things. I think fundamentally it's a matter of investment in the infrastructure. That doesn't always mean new roads. Sometimes it means technology. Some of you have probably noticed and interacted with the variable message signs that are now operational on 217 and I-5 and some other places that gives people choices. The other thing I think is looking for structures that are flexible. The previous discussion included some mention of the road use charge, where we would move from paying for infrastructure based on the number of gallons of gas that you purchase to the number of miles that you drive. And that allows for a whole lot of other flexible ways to account for crowding and for the need for new infrastructure.
Last question, and it came from our folks online. How do you justify tax breaks for big business while cutting pensions for state workers?
I think we have to look at the economy as a whole, and our best efforts have to go to things that are going to grow the economy and that are going to give people opportunities and that are going to allow us to invest in the things that work. For me, again, the things that work are in education, innovation, and infrastructure. And when we have opportunities to enact policies that support those things, that's something I want to do.
If Mr. Martin were here tonight, what question would you ask him?
I'd ask him what he wants to accomplish in the legislature.
What do you want to accomplish in the legislature?
I want to make sure that we are creating a state that lets everybody live up to their full potential. I want to be motivated by giving that opportunity to people. I want to make sure that we all understand we have responsibilities to each other. And by doing that, we're going to build a stronger community.
Would you like a closing statement?
I would just say thank you for people being here and remind you that while there is lots of room to debate particular issues and to make choices about particular candidates, I don't think there's any doubt that we all have a stake in what happens in elections and in government. And whatever choice you make, you're obviously all going to vote because you're here. Unfortunately, there are too many of our friends, family, and neighbors who don't make that decision. So as you leave here tonight, I hope you'll take what you've learned and talk with your friends and neighbors and encourage them to be involved in the discussion, the debate. When we get to the legislature, we need your continued involvement. We don't have all the answers. We want your perspectives. We want to be informed by what you see and think, and I hope you'll stay in touch.
Representative Tobias Reed, thank you for being with us tonight. I'd like to remind the audience those yellow cards are still available. If you have questions, we still have races and discussions. Next up, we're going to hear from the candidates for state representative for the 28th district in the Oregon House of Representatives. Candidate Lars D.H. Hedbor is running against the incumbent, Representative Jeff Barker. Mr. Hedbor could not attend this evening, but we're honoring our invitation that we extended to the other candidate in the race. That would be Representative Barker. He'll have an opportunity to give us an opening statement, answer some questions to the audience and the Mayor's Youth Advisory Board, and I won't forget, I promise, and also a closing statement. Jeff Barker is the state representative for House District 28, which covers portions of Beaverton and Aloha. Jeff is a retired police officer who worked in law enforcement for 31 years, 3 of them with the Oregon State Police as a patrolman and a game warden, and then for 28 years with the Portland Police Bureau. He retired in 2001 as a lieutenant. Jeff is also a former president of the Portland Police Association and the Portland Commanding Officers Association. Born in Portland, Oregon, Jeff graduated from Benson High School before he joined the United States Marine Corps. He returned to attend Portland State University, where he got his Bachelor of Science in History. He's lived in Aloha for 36 years with his wife, Vicki. Jeff and Vicki celebrated their 48th wedding anniversary this year. Congratulations. They have 2 grown daughters, Heidi, a longtime deputy district attorney in Multnomah County and now Governor Kitzhaber's public safety policy advisor, and Heather, an electrician with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. They have 1 grandson, Owen, who started kindergarten this fall. Jeff was elected to the House for the first time in 2002. He's nearing the end of his 6th term. This session, he is the chair of the House Committee on Judiciary. He serves on the Joint Ways and Means Public Subcommittee, Public Safety Subcommittee, and the Joint Ways and Means Committee, the full committee. Commissioner Barker, or rather Representative Barker, tell where my mind's been. Thank you very much for being here tonight. Your opening statement, please.
Thank you, and thank you everybody for taking the time to come down. It is important that you get information and that you vote. And as Representative Reed asked, Tobias Reed asked you, please talk to your neighbors, get everybody to vote. It's really important. I'm really honored to have been elected to this office now since the election in 2002. And as mentioned earlier, people tend to go to their area of expertise. That's why I ended up in the Judiciary Committee, where we write civil and criminal law. Normally traditionally that's been a job for a lawyer, but I'm the retired cop, not the lawyer, but I'm there, and I have good lawyers on the committee to help me make sense of some of the stuff that I don't quite understand. We've worked a lot on issues regarding the prison. There was a huge build of prisons. We've stopped that, at least for a while, and we're trying to keep people from going to prison. And one of my emphasis has always been to keep people safe. I don't want victims. And I've worked hard to prevent crime through that. I've worked hard to keep education funding, especially in the early years. If a child isn't reading by the 3rd grade, they have a chance of ending up in prison. That's what we don't want. Thank you.
I would like to say that we did invite Mr. Hedbor to submit a biography. He chose not to, and he did not submit anything for the voters pamphlet either. So the first question, Representative Barker, will come to you from Mayor Youth Advisory Board member Krista Jansen. Krista, come on down.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
My name's Krista Jansen. I'm an 11th grader at Southridge High School, and my question for you is, When you say keep sexual predators away from kids, what do you mean by sexual predators, and how will you keep our kids safe from them?
Okay, thank you. That's a great question. The sexual predators are somebody who actually has a victim they prey on. Usually it's an adult with a child. And I've worked, since I've been down there, on several different laws. One was called Chelsea's Law. I worked with Republican Senator Bruce Starr from Hillsborough, where we created a law that says if a child is under 13 years of age, an adult sexually abuses that child, they will go to prison for 25 years, period. And they will have to be monitored for life after that to keep people safe. There's times when juveniles are involved in sexual predation and they're able to be treated. Adults usually are not able to be treated if they're truly a predator, and so we have to really take care of them and spend more time watching those people than instead of a minor, a lesser charge of somebody who's a sex registered offender. If they're not a danger, we need to have more emphasis put on the people who are truly dangerous. And with adults, they have test systems where they can figure that out. So thank you very much for that question.
Thank you.
As a father, as a grandfather, a retired police officer, now a state representative, are you confident that we can create a public safety system that will generate that kind of safety for children?
It will never make it perfect. There's always going to be the people who get around it and who commit those kind of horrific crimes. But I will do and have done everything I can to put a stop to that. It's so horrific to the child. If they're a sexual victim, they're affected for life. And as an old cop, I used to see the girls on the street. There were prostitutes working the street. Virtually all of them were sexually molested as children. It isn't just something that happens, you read it in the paper and it goes away. Those are horrific crimes, and that's, my concern there.
Do you think this legislature has the political will to deal with it?
The legislature has been pretty good in dealing with those kind of things. They supported the Chelsea's Law. There was some issue with some leadership that didn't want to move that, but Bruce Starr and I got together and got that done.
You've been at this state legislator business for a little while now. What's your main goal going forward?
My main goal is the public safety, trying to keep things, make Oregon a safer place. And one of the things we're working on right now, I've been on a committee that's for school safety. And what we're trying to do there is we're trying to get all the police and all the schools on the same page in case of emergencies. And what we're talking about there, of course, is those school shootings. And Hillsborough, for example, Hillsborough police have on their computers in their cars the blueprints of the high schools and the grade schools. So if an officer is called, for instance, if there's a shooting at Beaverton High School and I'm the policeman and I go racing up there and they say it's in room 334, I wouldn't have any idea where that was unless I could pull up these quick maps. So we're working statewide to get that done. And with the superintendent of state police is on that committee, our sheriff is on that committee, and several other people in law enforcement. And so that's one of the main goals that we're doing right now, working on that.
Question from our audience, and I'm going to try to interpret here. How does a child that doesn't read at a third grade level have a chance of going to prison? I would assume that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. So one of the things they're finding is people in prison, they go back, they look the other way and they say, how was their education? And children who aren't able to read are at a disadvantage. Now, not everybody that doesn't read is going to go to prison, but if we can keep people educated, get them up to reading speed, and they'll stay in school. Once they get behind, it's very difficult to catch back up. And then you're in high school, you're not keeping up, people are making fun of you, so you drop out. And that's where the problem is. And the scientific information we're receiving down there shows that children who aren't doing well in school have a much more difficult time down the road unless you can get that fixed. And it's very difficult to catch somebody up, especially large numbers of people.
A question that came in online: if you only had one bill this session, what would it be? Well,
I would continue with the work on the school safety issue. That would be the thing I would continue to work on, if I could just have the one bill. Right now it's in a study group. We don't really have a bill. We had a bill to make it a study group, but I want to get that finished.
You will have more than one bill, though.
Oh, yeah. We'll have some more.
Oh, good. Okay, now it's time for a closing statement. You have a minute?
Okay, thank you. Again, thank you very much for coming out tonight. It's been just a true honor to be able to serve. I kind of look at, I don't know if you know, the salary we get down there is about $20,000 a year. When we're in session, I rent a home in Salem, and so I'm not in here to make money. I don't know that anybody is that's down there. And virtually everybody, Republican, Democrat, that is in the legislature is trying to make Oregon a better place to live. And I consider this to be public service. And it's a continuation of what I've just done all my life. I went, out of high school, I joined the Marines, the United States Marine Corps, served overseas. I was earlier, Vietnam hadn't really kicked off yet when I returned. My father died while I was in the Marines while I was down in Tennessee at the time. So when my enlistment was up, I got out, helped my mother a bit, and then I went to college, got married, and went to work for the police department, state police and then Portland police, and I think we can all work to make our lives a little better, whether you're the machinist at Freightliner, or the police officer, or the school teacher. Thank you.
Representative Jeff Barker, thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you very much.
We are now going to introduce you to the candidates for House District 34 in the Oregon House of Representatives. House District 34 covers a large portion of northern Beaverton. The seat was held for several years, several terms, by Representative Chris Harker, who has chosen not to seek re-election in 2014. Therefore, District 34 is an open seat. We have two candidates for this open seat tonight, Ken Helm and Brendan King. Gentlemen, thank you both for being with. Ken Helm grew up in Oregon with a deep appreciation for protecting our natural spaces. As an attorney, he worked with local residents to stand up to development projects that would hurt our community. Through land use work at Metro, Ken has been heavily involved in how we can best grow our economy and create jobs while also preserving farmland and green spaces. Ken lives in Beaverton with his wife Mariah and their two children. Ken wants to be your representative to stand up for our shared priorities, creating opportunity and passing on our natural legacy to future generations. Brendan King did not submit a formal biography, but we took a summary from his voter's pamphlet statement. Mr. Brendan King is a customer service supervisor at Washington Federal. He's lived most of his life in Beaverton and Washington County. He decided to run because the money wasted on CRC and the Cover Oregon website should have been spent on helping folks, paying our teachers, and reinvested in the community. He would like to see stronger internal controls on how our government manages our money to ensure it isn't wasted by bureaucrats. He is the candidate for the Republican Party and the Libertarian Party of Oregon. And by lot, we drew the order of who would go first with the opening statement. And Mr. Helm, you have a minute and a half.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here tonight. And thanks for the organizers in picking tonight instead of tomorrow night, because I think a lot of us might not be here on the first night of the World Series. I just wanted to tell you a little bit more about myself and my career background as an intro. Me and my family have lived at our current home, which is right near the THPRD Rec Center, for the last 10 years, and we've really enjoyed living there. It's a great walking neighborhood, and we really enjoy the services. Before that, we came from Raleigh Hills area of southwest Portland. So we've been in the vicinity for about 20 years. I wanted to tell you a little bit about my work as a land use hearings officer and a land use attorney. And the reason I wanted to tell you a little bit about that and right now is because it's so similar to what a legislature needs to do. In my job currently, I do a lot of listening. I listen to a lot of points of view. I'm presented with a lot of different data and evidence, and I'm required to mediate among people, and I'm required to make a decision that's based on the evidence and data and in an attempt to be fair. And I think that is what a good legislator needs to do as well. So I intend to remember the lessons that I've learned as a land use lawyer and a land use hearings officer and take those to the legislature. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. King, minute and a half.
Yeah, minor correction. I did submit the bio this afternoon, but that's okay. My name is Brendan King. I'm excited to be here tonight. I want to start off by saying two things I'm thankful for. First thing is that I get to be out here talking about the issues with you folks tonight. The second thing is that they provide us with chairs up here. Tonight is Monday night, beginning of a long work week. Last week I logged 57 hours on my work week. This week will be 62 hours. On top of going door to door, handing out flyers to folks and talking about the issues that are affecting them. I work hard, and I know you do too, because I have dreams, goals, and aspirations. One of the reasons I decided to get into politics is because I realized that the dreams, goals, and aspirations I set for myself, that we saw the middle class, older folks, retirees, and young and future generation in Oregon weren't going to have those same opportunities. As a state representative, I'd like to go down to Salem and do exactly what a state representative's job is, represent the people of that district. Now, we're getting to the end of the time here, so I really hope people take time and ask questions about land use, my goals on economics, education, and so I can have more of a chance to expound on that. Once again, thank you for letting me speak tonight. Have a great evening.
Thank you. And the first question will go to you, Mr. King, and it will come from Mayor Youth Advisory Board member Ian Wasson.
Hello. So I am Ian Wasson. I attend the School of Science and Technology, and I'm an 11th grader. My question to you is, the population of Portland might reach over 3 million by 2035, as projected by recent population studies. If elected, how will you accommodate the projected increase in population without overcrowding and increasing the density in the neighborhoods so that the quality of life in the Portland metro area is not compromised?
Yeah. One of the major problems I think that we've seen in Portland is our land use policy, which has created problems like gentrification of our neighborhoods, overcrowding. One of Metro's goals is to move as many people into multi-unit housing like condos and apartments. I've lived in apartments. I don't think it's necessarily the best environment to raise a family. My goal is someday to own a home. I know a lot of people's goals are. I think one of the first steps to creating higher living quality is to begin reducing those land use policies that have created those kind of issues.
Thank you. Mr. Helm?
Great question. And as many people know in the Portland region, we do the best job probably in the country of planning ahead and adopting innovative land use planning strategies to help deal with those very issues. We decided a long time ago to create urban growth boundaries that divided our urban areas from our rural areas, in part to protect our resource lands, our farm and forest lands, from sprawl. We didn't want to become like California, and we've done a darn good job of that. At the present time, we've set our urban growth boundary in the metro region for the next 20 to 50 years. We've identified the land that we think we're going to need. We've added a little bit, and we've identified where we can grow appropriately when we need to. The next task is to do something that the city of Beaverton has done so well in the past few years, which is to create a vision for how our community looks, feels, how we work, and how we get ourselves back and forth from work and school and our homes. And Beaverton's done a great job. Some of that planning is going to mean we accommodate increased density in certain places. And that's okay, because you need a mix of housing types to accommodate all needs. Some people like single-family residences and single-family neighborhoods. Other folks, particularly younger folks and millennials, are opting for more dense housing, where they're close to transportation, they can ride their bikes, and they can reach services without owning a car. When you mix all those together appropriately, you get a very livable community, and I think we're doing a great job already.
Mr. Helm, this question is for you, and it came in online. What do you believe has been the most prominent issue in your district over the past year, and how do you plan to address that issue if elected?
Most prominent issue in the district, I'd say one of the most controversial and that I've heard a lot about is how Nike will expand. It's a super important thing in our district. As you know, Nike sits nearly in the middle of District 34. Some folks were a little bit angry that Nike received a perceived tax break so that Nike would remain in its current location and would expand that location to become its world headquarters and continue to be the world headquarters for the next 30 years. Folks are really concerned about how that's going to affect our neighborhoods, and I live very close, so I'm concerned as well. I think that on that front, Nike has done a very good job so far in reaching out to folks that live nearby. Pretty soon, we'll be able to see their master plan for the first phases of that development. And I think Nike's very committed to ensuring that our street infrastructure in and around their current campus is maintained so that the existing residents don't bear the brunt of the potentially new employees and the traffic that's going to come with it, so that when we do add those employees, getting to and from the headquarters is controlled on our streets in a way that allows adequate flow and doesn't burden the existing neighborhoods.
Thank you. Mr. King.
I believe that the next few years is going to be the transportation. If you drive down 217, if you drive down 26, I commute into downtown Portland for work. 26 is an absolute mess. We need to have a major overhaul of our infrastructure here in Washington County to account for the perceived growth of Washington County. Also, if you look at some of the larger new stores, I believe like a Cabela's, a Walmart is going in, we need to begin looking at our infrastructure, whether it can handle that kind of growth. And if it can't, we need to begin looking at the state legislator, also the county, to come in and provide the funding to do a major overhaul and upgrade.
This question is for you, and it kind of goes along with what you just said. What is your position on 34221?
On that one,
That's the Washington County road proposal.
I would support it. I believe driving in Washington County, driving during rush hour is an absolute mess to get through sometimes. Weather conditions like rain can just make 26 or 217 come to an absolute standstill.
Mr. Helm.
Same question there?
Same question.
I've looked at both sides, and I very much appreciate the comments of Jody Weiser tonight. I think we need people looking out for chinks in our tax programs that are not fair over time. We need to keep an eye on that. But I think that at this point in time, we can't afford to let the infrastructure go much further. And as far as the danger of being taxed once in Washington County and then being taxed again if the legislature moves on a major transportation package, it seems to me that we can probably accommodate that in some way by acknowledging the Washington County measure if it passes.
Mr. Helm, this question is for you, and it comes in online. How will you make health care more affordable for the general public?
One of the things that has been a great advantage in the last couple of years is the continuing care organizations. And what they do, although they don't touch every person that needs health care, only a certain sector of our health care patients, is that it takes a completely new view on how to provide health care for our communities. And that is one that we use in our daily lives all the time. We look ahead and we try to be preventative against things that might cause us harm or might improve our health. So instead of using a system that is oriented toward treating already sick patients and allowing them to get that way, the continuing care organizations are given a pot of money with the directive of keep people healthy. And I very much think that that's the right way to go. I think we're going to be learning very important lessons from how the CCOs do their work, and that's going to trickle down through the rest of the system in a very positive way.
Mr. King?
I believe the first thing is to do is begin holding people accountable. $400 million wasted on Cover Oregon. In my personal opinion, some people should go to jail for that. I believe that when we write laws, healthcare laws, when we do anything in state legislature, it needs to be transparent. Writing laws behind closed doors, coming out, passing legislation, not holding people in the bureaucracies accountable for what they're doing with that funds needs to be the first step in that process. Next step is to getting together with health professionals, people that are experts in the industry, taking a look, taking out the special interests. We're not going to write bills that favor one side or the other. We're going to write bills that favor the people.
We've now arrived at the Lincoln-Douglas portion of our discussion tonight, gentlemen. You will have 30 seconds to ask your opponent a question, and Mr. King, you will ask Mr. Helm the first question, please.
Yeah, kind of a little background on this question. When we were in the Willamette Weekly interview, Mr. Helm is a very polished lawyer, but one question that kind of stumped him that he couldn't think of an answer for was, where do you differ, or where is a stance that you would take different than your parties? And so I would like to give him a second chance to answer that question.
That's a very broad question, and at the time, I could not think of major differences with the party that I've chosen to move forward with, the Democratic Party. I'm not really sure how relevant a question it is either. When you're down in the legislature, proposals will come before all the members of the legislature. I was recently told by an older member, and I thought this was very wise. He said, look, 92% of the work that we do down here, the Republicans and the Democrats agree on. The other 8% we disagree on a little bit, and that's where the rub comes, and that's where we hear most of the coverage. So at this time, I can't anticipate where I'm going to differ with my party. I will tell you this. As I said, part of being a good legislator is listening, and I've already been listening to folks in my district as I walked and knocked doors in the primary, and I will continue to listen. And if our needs here in the district are different than the needs of the folks in the state, and I have to differ with my party for those reasons, I will. And that's a thinking person's approach, and I think that's the right way to go.
On that, thank you. Now your question for Mr. King, please.
As a Libertarian candidate, I'm curious about, if you're elected, which party you're going to caucus with. There's a candidate down in Salem, in the Salem area, Chuck Lee, that's running as an independent, and he says that he won't caucus with either party. As a Libertarian candidate, I wonder, because Libertarian philosophy sometimes has issues that might go Democratic and other times might go Republican, which party do you think you're going to caucus with?
I would caucus with the Republican Party. Doesn't mean I'm going to go down there and vote with the Republicans 100% of the time. I like to look at the issues that are before the state legislature and say, if I believe that an issue that the Democrats have the right approach to it, I wouldn't mind being the sole Republican, voting with an all-Democrat caucus, and vice versa, voting with the Republicans on a split House.
Time now for our closing statements. Mr. King, you get to go for 1 minute, please.
Yeah, my goal in getting into here, or getting into this race, because I got in a little bit late, was to go down and represent the people. That's representing the young folks here that we have, the old retirees that are getting pushed out of their homes by rising property taxes, as well as the minority community that we don't have we have less than 4 people down in Oregon House. I would like to represent the people of House District 34, not the special interests. And if that means going out alone or going with the party, I have no problem with doing that. I want to thank you for coming out tonight. Listen to me speak.
Mr. Helm.
Thanks again for coming out tonight. What I like to remind folks in District 34 of is we've had a great set of representatives over the last few years. And this is the district of Brad Avakian, Suzanne Bonamici, and Chris Harker most recently. Those folks were all professionals that were mature in their fields and their careers when they entered the legislature. Brad Avakian was a labor lawyer. Suzanne Bonamici was a workers' comp lawyer, and Chris Harker was an IT entrepreneur. I fit that same profile, and my career experience gives me a head start at the legislature because I've worked with cities, counties, and the regional government in the past. I understand the inner workings and what it takes to get stuff done. And what it mostly takes is listening, understanding, and collaboration. And that's what you will find in me as an elected official. Thanks again.
Brendan King and John Helm, thank you both. Ken Helm, I'm sorry. Thank you both for joining us. And now we move on to State Senate District 17. That's State Senate District 17, and we will hear from the candidates for that post. Candidate John Verbeek is running against the incumbent, Senator Elizabeth Steiner Hayward. Senator Steiner Hayward could not attend this evening, but we're honoring our invitation that we extended to the other candidate in this race. Candidate John Verbeek will have an opportunity to give us his opening statement, answer questions from the audience, and give us his closing statement. Senator Steiner Hayward did submit a biography for us. She says she is honored to have represented Senate District 17 for almost 3 years and looks forward to continuing this service. As a family physician, she is a strong supporter of access to high-quality, affordable care for all Oregonians and works hard to address health care policy and social determinants of health, such as affordable housing, food security, and high-quality public education. Much of her committee work in the legislature focuses on the state's budget based on her commitment to using tax dollars wisely. She says she is truly sorry she could not be here tonight, but she is currently in Washington, D.C., addressing health policy issues, and she welcomes your questions via email or phone, which you can find at www.elizabethfororegon.com. And there's also some campaign literature in the back. John Verbeek is a candidate for state senator in District 17. John has a financial background, and this is his third run for office. He and his wife have lived in the Sunset High School area for the past 19 years after relocating from Switzerland. He is an immigrant from the Netherlands, and they have 2 grown children. His campaign is focused on prosperity, education, and limited government, and of course, health care too. He is the candidate for the Republican Party and the Libertarian Party of Oregon. Mr. Verbeek, thank you for joining us tonight. You have 1 minute for your opening statement.
Thank you, Eric. Good to be here. And as Eric read, my campaign is focused on prosperity, make our society a more prosperous society, which to me is a society that people make life better for other people. Not that the government does it all, but that individual citizens do it, and that we create laws that encourage that. Education is also very important to me. I'm a strong opponent of Common Core. I think teachers should have the flexibility and the ability and the necessary rules of engagement to teach our kids what they need to learn. And the last item is limited government. Not necessarily, doesn't mean small government, but a government that judges, makes rules, and that judges wrongdoing. And that's missing in Oregon at the moment.
You have 10 seconds.
Well, when you've said all you have to say, then sit down, stop talking.
You'll get your first question from Mayor Youth Advisory Board member Sam Ilsley. Sam?
Good evening. I'm Samuel Ilsley. I'm a senior at Health and Science High School, and my question is, if class sizes did not drop in schools, for example, due to the population increase, how could you give students in the K-12 program a better, more successful learning environment?
Thank you, Sam. It's a great question. I always hear about small class sizes, and it's great to go to a school and to a college that have small class sizes where the professor actually teaches. But I think it's more important that a child cannot hide. I went to schools, we had 40 kids in my school in Holland, and nobody could hide. A teacher knew where you were, the parents knew where you were. There was also no lack of fatherhood. If there was a problem, then the dad would speak to the principal. And so I'm more for, after-school programs, keep the kids involved, that you cannot hide and just disappear in a gang, for instance. That should not be an option. Does that answer your question?
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sam. Next question comes from our audience. Washington County does not have much funding for social services. Community action and care to share run out of funds quickly to help families, and people are left with choices of homelessness, paying for utilities, health care, and other necessities. How will you address this?
Yeah, it's a deep tragedy because we live in the wealthiest county of the state. My kids went to Sunset High School. We have homeless kids at Sunset High School. And so that is, we have to, it's a collective responsibility. There should be adequate funding for it. And to give the worst end of the spectrum is that the prison population nationwide is growing, and the average age of the prisoner is going down. They're younger, and those kids are more aggressive too. So, and it starts with education and with the schools, so, and with the social services. It's tied into it. So it's really a high priority, but we should have an exit strategy, that the goal is not to cater to homelessness and social service, that there's an exit strategy, that it's just a stepping stone to get back on top, and that you can help make life better for other people.
Another question from our audience tonight. Should liquid natural gas terminals and pipelines be built in Oregon?
I'm in favor of comprehensive energy policy. It has to be environmentally sound, and we all talk about the earthquake and the natural disasters that are upon us, but we should be open-minded and not just because it doesn't sound right, we don't build anything. But to build a big facility in an earthquake-prone area, if people say it is sound, let's double-check that. But I'm in favor of a comprehensive energy policy. It's important we have low energy, and that we to fuel our economy, and that's how we get around.
We've asked this question of other legislative candidates. We'll ask you tonight. Where do you stand on Measure 34221, the Washington County registration and road maintenance measure?
It's very sad that we have yet another little measure for the roads. It should be part of a comprehensive transportation package. And to me, it's inexcusable that we waste $200 million to study that bridge that we still don't have, and that there's no money for the roads, potholes in the roads in Washington County. So I'll let the voters come down on that. It's important we have a good infrastructure, but it's very sad we have this measure on the ballot.
Another question that came in online, if you could introduce only one bill this session which reflects your highest priority for a statewide change, what would the topic of that bill be? How would you work with your fellow legislators to ensure that bill passes?
I think it's very important we get something sustainable in health care. And my goal is to to move the role of government that they judge better. Who is judging Cover Oregon? Nobody, because the government is too close with the insurance companies. I like to make there a bigger split between the two, and that a citizen has the government that fights for them, and is not that we are not fighting this humongous government healthcare complex.
If Senator Steiner Hayward were here tonight, what would be the question you would have asked her?
I would have asked her that before. The Democrat Party has been in control of Oregon politics for the last 20 years, 2 decades. If they could make Cover Oregon work and healthcare work in Oregon, work with the Affordable Care Act, this was the session they could have done it. And when she saw when it went wrong, $300 million down the drain, nothing went to patients. Why didn't you stand up to your party and demand accountability, and instead throw another $20 million to health care? Nothing to the patients, and that is the question I would ask her.
Your closing statement, please.
I'm an immigrant from the Netherlands, which also is a blue country, like Oregon, but it's in the interest of all of us. We have more accountability, more balance in government. I will not be able to change the direction of the state, but I will stand up to leadership, my own leadership, but also Democrat leadership, if there's wrongdoing. And that's the only way we get progress with healthcare and also with education. So if you're a Democrat, a lifelong Democrat, I don't expect you to change your party registration, but think very wisely for your legacy, for all of our legacy, who you vote for this election.
Thank you for being here tonight. We appreciate it.
Good to be here.
John Forbay. And now we have arrived at the premier event of the Beaverton Voters Forum for October 20th, 2014. We are going to be talking about statewide Measure 92, which would, if it passes, require food manufacturers and retailers to label genetically modified foods. Tonight we have Colin Cochran, a spokesperson for the No on 92 campaign, and Rick North, who is a spokesperson for the Yes on 92 campaign. So I will read their biographies in alphabetical order. Colin Cochran is a spokesperson for the No on 92 coalition. It's a statewide coalition representing over 33,000 Oregon family farmers, ranchers, food producers, grocers, retailers, and other businesses, doctors, taxpayers, and consumers who've come together to urge a no vote on Measure 92. Colin is a principal in the Hilltop Public Solutions firm. He's worked in government affairs, communications, and grassroots outreach on a variety of issues throughout the Pacific Northwest. Rick North is a spokesperson for the Yes on 92 coalition. He's now retired, but at one point he worked for 21 years for the American Cancer Society, the last 5 from 1993 to 1998 as the executive vice president of the Oregon chapter. He served for over 7 years as the founder of Oregon Physicians for Social Responsibilities Campaign for Safe Food, covering the issue of genetically modified organisms, GMOs. He co-founded and led a national coalition opposing recombinant bovine growth hormone, which is RBGH or RBST, in dairy products. So let's get started. By a flip of the coin, the proponent of Measure 92, which is Mr. North, will have 2 minutes for an opening statement.
Thank you. The foundation of Measure 92 is that we have the right to know what's in our food. Consumers in 64 other nations already have this right, and U.S. companies that export genetically engineered foods to them are already labeling. We simply feel that if they can label for them, they can label for us too. In just the past few years, 24 states have introduced bills or initiatives to label GMOs. Connecticut and Maine have already passed labeling bills, which would go into effect if neighboring states do the same, and Vermont passed a bill that will go into effect on its own. We're a key part of a major nationwide citizen movement to achieve the transparency that we need to make informed decisions. There's been a lot of questioning about certain points, so I'd like to shed light on just one. Does labeling hurt farmers, as an opposition TV ad said? Out of about 220 agricultural products in Oregon, only 4 are genetically engineered. The vast majority of American farmers don't even grow GMO crops and wouldn't be affected at all. For the few that do, all they have to do is inform their processors that their crops are genetically engineered, which costs nothing, or if they're selling directly to grocery stores, mark their food containers as genetically engineered, which costs virtually nothing. And the initiative specifically protects farmers from lawsuits for inadvertent GMO contamination. That wheat farmer on TV saying would cost farmers millions, there is no GMO wheat approved for growing. It doesn't exist. Consumers have many reasons for wanting labeling: concerns about the health, environment, religious beliefs, or an unwillingness to support GMO agriculture. You may not or may share these concerns, but no matter where you stand, we simply feel that everyone has the right to know what's in their food.
Mr. Cochran.
Thank you so much for allowing me to come speak with you this evening. My name is Colin Cochran. I'm with the No on Measure 92 coalition, and as was said, we represent thousands of Oregon family farmers, ranchers, small businesses, and concerned citizens, all of whom have come together to urge a no vote on Measure 92, because it is a badly written measure that fails on its fundamental promise of delivering consistent, accurate, and reliable information to consumers about their food choices. Under Measure 92, thousands of food products that contain 0 genetically engineered ingredients will require a label, while thousands of food products that actually do contain genetically engineered ingredients will be exempt from any sort of label under Measure 92's numerous loopholes. In fact, 2/3 of the foods and beverages that we consume as Oregonians will be exempt from any sort of label under Measure 92, even if they contain genetically engineered ingredients. This also applies to meat, milk, and eggs from animals that have been fed GE grains or injected with GE medication. And this last point is important because it conflicts with existing national standards that are reliable and already help consumers choose non-GE foods if that's their choice. That's the organic and non-GMO label. You can find them in any store. Measure 92 conflicts with that. Measure 92 also conflicts with every other genetically engineered labeling standard across the world because it imposes a zero threshold. A zero threshold, read section 4, and it will tell you that anything that's even partially produced with a genetically engineered ingredient triggers that label. The smallest amount can trigger the label. So farmers, food processors, in order to comply, are going to have to implement costly and complex new systems or remake their food with much more expensive non-GE ingredients. Those costs come down to us. We can expect to pay hundreds more at the checkout line each year per family. We can expect a huge tax hit as well. $14 million, according to the Department of Administrative Services, it's going to cost each budget cycle to implement Measure 92. The costs are very real. The information under Measure 92 is inaccurate, incomplete, and inconsistent. Vote no.
Thank you. Our first question will go to you, Mr. Cochran, if you don't mind, and it will come from a Mayor Youth Advisory Board member, Anita Jane.
Good evening. My name is Anirudh Jain, and I'm a junior at Catlin Gable High School. So if the measure is passed, what positives do you believe will come from this new label? And what could be some of the cons that would come from labeling foods genetically modified? And why do you believe that one outweighs the other?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the kind of last half of the question?
And what could be some of the cons that would come from labeling foods genetically modified?
I'm sorry, I'm not hearing that word.
Cons.
The cons?
Yeah.
The labeling? So we don't see positives. I mean, we expect there to be, when we think of labels, we want them to be consistent, we want them to be accurate, and we want them to actually give us the information we're looking for. Measure 92 fails on all those fronts. I don't see any positives in a measure that gives bad information. And again, because there's going to be products that are GE, that do not require a label, and products that have zero GE that will be labeled under this faulty measure. That's misleading information. That's bad information. Nothing good comes out of bad information at the checkout line.
Thank you. Mr. North.
I see a lot of good. This is how much information we have right now. This is how much you'd have to make positive, informed decisions. As far as the inconsistency, all it is, foods that are not required to be labeled now, like the restaurants, like the bake sales, the cafeterias, they would not be required to be labeled under Measure 92. Foods that are labeled now, the nutrition labels, like in the grocery stores, they would be required to be labeled. This system has been in place in the United States for nearly 25 years, this labeling protocol. All we are doing is seamlessly integrating into the system and the structure that is already there. And folks, I don't think you've been really too upset or feel misled because you've gone to a school cafeteria or a bake sale and have not seen labeling there. All we're doing is following the system that's already in place. It is entirely consistent. And what he said about this being different every other one, the zero threshold, I'm sorry, this is completely wrong. It's right in the initiative that the threshold is 0.9% by weight. It's right in the initiative. It is the same as Vermont, as Connecticut, as Maine, as Colorado's. It is consistent with most of the countries of Europe. This is the way it was drawn up. We looked at all the other ones that's going on in the country and in the world and maintained consistency. That is what it's all about.
Mr. Cochran, I'll give you a chance to answer that.
Absolutely. You take a look at the statement, the proposal, and in Section 4 it says anything that is wholly or partially produced with genetic engineering must be labeled or is misbranded. Under Oregon statute, anything that is found to be misbranded The district attorney can bring process against that, whoever the violator is, for $10,000 in potential criminal penalties. There is nothing in this measure that provides relief from misbranding. What they're referring to, the 0.9 threshold, and I know this is getting in the legal weeds a little bit, but that only refers to injunctive relief and attorney fees. So you get a little bit of a mulligan. So you don't have to maybe pay, some attorney fees. That's all well and good, but you have a fine of $10,000 per violation per date. There is not a single word that provides relief against misbranding.
Thank you.
Do you want 30 seconds for that? Sure.
Yes. When this was drawn up, we had a team of some of the top lawyers in the country, plus many other activists getting together for days to write this up to make sure. And some of these lawyers had actually argued genetically engineered food issues before the Supreme Court. We made very, very sure that this was on solid legal grounds. It is not going to lead to any of these lawsuits that our opponent says it's going to. And it is entirely consistent with what is going on around the country. 24 states looking at putting in labeling of genetically engineered foods. 24. And we are looking at providing consistency. Our language is exactly the same in terms of produced with genetic engineering. If that's what it is, that is exactly the same as Vermont's, and that is exactly what it would do.
Okay,
So,
a question now for you, Mr. North, from the audience, and I'm quoting, "I want labeling. How would you rewrite this measure to not fail?"
well, I'm glad whoever you are, I'm glad you want labeling. That's good to hear. To not fail, this has been written. We've taken a look at there have been two measures before, California 2 years ago and Washington last year. Both of them just barely fell short, 51 to 49%. And that was mainly due to a flooding of corporate money coming in that would put out all these ads that frankly did their job of confusing people a lot. And what we have done is try to write this so that it is crystal clear as possible, so that it did not run into problems that, say, maybe we're running into wording problems with California and Washington. And we think that this is an excellently written ballot initiative. And we also think, if it passes, that this is going to, is that 2 minutes
No, that's
for me?
from me. And I'm going to ask you to sum that up. So I can get
I'll
this
sum
done.
that. Okay, I'll sum that up. So what this is lawsuit. I won't say lawsuit proof. You never know what's going to happen. But we feel very, very strong that if this is challenged legally, it will stand up in court, and we're very proud of the wording on it.
Mr. Cochran, your response.
So you won't know what they say about roads and best intentions. Despite what those best intentions were, they have produced an incredibly flawed measure. Back to the zero threshold, I hold in my hand right now a legal memo from a leading Portland law firm that says and reaffirms that this does not provide any relief from any sort of misbranding action a district attorney can bring. That's huge for every farmer and every food processor. You want to know how that could hurt farmers? $10,000 per violation per day. They had the opportunity to write a measure that didn't conflict with the organic and non-GMO verified label. They chose not to. They had the opportunity to write a measure that did not exempt 2/3 of the food and beverages that we eat and consume as Oregonians. They chose not to. They had a blank sheet of paper. And I want it to be clear, too, is we did not pick this fight. We did not pick this fight. This was their choice. They had multiple drafts of measures that they could have put forward. This is the best that they came up with. It hurts Oregon.
Thank you, gentlemen. We're going to let you each ask each other a question. This should be interesting. Mr. North, by a flip of the coin, you get to ask the first question. You have 30 seconds to do so.
I'm sorry, who is? I
do, sir.
You do,
Okay.
sir.
Okay. The opposition campaign has been running a TV ad in the past few days saying that Measure 92, and you heard it again tonight, conflicts with national organic standards. My question, if Measure 92 actually did conflict with organic standards, Why would Oregon Tilth, the main organic certifying agency in the Northwest, organically grown company, the main organic wholesaler, Organic Seed Growers and Trade Association, Organic Consumers Association, and dozens of organic farmers all officially endorse Measure 92?
You have a minute, Mr. Cochran.
This absolutely conflicts with organic and non-GMO verified labels. It's clear as crystal. Under those, and it's interesting too, from the person who spent so much time with bovine hormones, any food, or excuse me, meat that has been, we call them animals before they get to meat, that has been fed GE grain or injected with genetically engineered medication, that meat, that milk, those eggs cannot qualify for organic or a non-GMO verified label. The standard is much, much more rigorous. So if you want to be sure that you're avoiding a genetically engineered ingredient or you want to consume non-GE foods, you have the opportunity to do so with those labels. There are tens of thousands of those products in all of our stores, and you can be 100% sure that when you buy those, you aren't getting any GE ingredients. You cannot say the same thing about a Measure 92 label because of all those inconsistencies that I have previously highlighted.
And now you have an opportunity to ask Mr. North a question. 30 seconds, please.
Well, let's go to cost. I was actually going to ask why you would write a measure that conflicts with organic and non-GMO, but for the sake of the audience, we'll ask a new one. So I want to talk about cost. You've heard me talk a little bit about those costs, hundreds of dollars per family at the checkout line. You heard me talk about $14 million worth of taxes. Why would you continue to go out there and say that costs are going to be nominal when the study that you cite only looks at the cost of printing and affixing a label, when the true costs are so much more?
Question.
I'd like to take a couple stabs at that. The $14 million they cite was in a memo, an internal memo, the Department of Administrative Services. And all it did was list particular options. One other option they had was about $535,000, by the way. Well, neither one made it to the final cut because the official cost to Oregon was set by the Secretary of State, and it's right online, it's a matter of public record, that it would be $550,000 to $600,000 for initial one-time startup costs. This is 15 cents per Oregonian. One time, that's it. And anything else is indeterminate after that. And then, as far as the costs on here, they're getting the hundreds of dollars, all industry-funded studies. Consumers Union, Consumers Report came up with $2.30 per person per year. That's
Thank you.
it.
Appreciate it. And now, closing statements, 2 minutes for each of you. Mr. Cochran, you have the first closing statement.
Well, thank you again for the opportunity to come talk to you about Measure 92. Again, the costs of this are very, very real. The Legislative Revenue Office has taken a look at this, and they anticipate significant economic impacts. The Department of Administrative Services, that memo has not been retracted. Those numbers are consistent with when this was looked at in 2002. Those tax dollars are going to be real. You know, the Citizens Initiative Review, which is an independent panel of 20 citizens that spent 4 days with this measure, heard from both sides, looked at this and found that the cost of labeling, like they like to talk about, is indeterminate, but there are going to be significant cost increases, and those are all going to be felt by us as consumers. They also urged a no vote on Measure 92. And we should vote no, because again, we want our labels to be consistent. We want them to be accurate. We want them to give us the information that we want. If we want to avoid GE foods and consume non-GE foods, that's absolutely our right. But you want to be confident that the label that you're buying is actually giving you what you want. You will not find that in Measure 92. Again, 2/3 of the food that we consume as Oregonians will be exempt. Even if products contain genetically engineered ingredients in the store, it will be exempt. Products with 0 genetically engineered ingredients in them will require a label under the badly written measure. That is not good information, and it does conflict. The organic and non-GMO verified labels are some of the fastest growing labels in the food world. This conflicts with all of them. It conflicts. So when we want information, when we're really sitting down at the ballot and thinking about, all right, are we really going to saddle ourselves with hundreds of dollars in additional food costs? Are we really going to pony up for $14 million every single budget cycle? Are we really, really going to hurt our Oregon farmers, or not all of them, the majority of whom oppose Measure 92? Are we going to put them at a competitive disadvantage by making them jump through hoops none of their competitors do? The answer should be no.
Thank you. Mr. North.
Thank you. We have the right to know what's in our food, and Measure 92 will provide a huge step forward in enabling us to do just that. Over 99% of the funding for the No campaign comes from corporations. Monsanto alone has contributed over $4 million. In the entire state, this is kind of unbelievable, only a few dozen individuals at most have given to the No campaign. In contrast, over 4,700 Oregonians have given to the Yes campaign. It's quite obvious which side is for the corporate interest and which for the public interest. Health groups like the Oregon Nurses Association, Public Health Association, Physicians for Social Responsibility have endorsed 92. So have environmental groups like the Sierra Club, Legal Conservation Voters, Food and Water Watch, and many more. And overall, 41 different health and environment groups have endorsed 92. 0 oppose it. Ecumenical Ministries of Oregon, representing all major faiths, has also endorsed, knowing full well it won't increase prices and hurt any consumers, low income or otherwise. There are 0 faith groups opposing this. Consumers Union, publisher of Consumer Reports, the leading consumer advocacy group in the country, endorses. There are 0 consumer groups opposing it. And finally, the farming community, unlike the Farm Bureau, which has received hundreds of thousands of dollars for the biotech industry, these organizations in Endorse 92 receive no such money. Family Farm Defenders, United Farm Workers, Oregon Rural Action, Friends of Family Farmers, and several local granges. Every time we walk into a grocery store, we're voting with more than our dollars. We're voting with our values. We're more than consumers. We're citizens. As citizens, we have a need to be informed and a right to know what's in our food. Please don't let them take away that right. Please vote yes on Measure 92.
Gentlemen, thank you very, very much. We didn't set off any smoke alarms in the library, so I really appreciate your civility and your information. Thank you. Thank you all for being here at the library tonight. If you haven't filled out your evaluation form, please do. We have volunteers waiting to receive them. Thanks again, and don't forget to vote.